Days Gone is set 2 years after a mysterious virus has caused people to transform into zombie-like creatures known as freakers. You play as Deacon St. John, who often goes by the rather terrible nickname of Deke, a biker who lost his wife early in the apocalypse and is now just trying to find a reason to survive. That reason manifests in a few different forms. Deacon's best friend is hurt and needs help to survive, various camps need him to make runs for supplies, and there's a mystery if his wife is actually dead or not. All the plot strings are here for an interesting look at living in a messed up world long after the virus. It's a shame then that Days Gone writing is as awful as it is.
Everywhere you look, it's all one giant lava field.
I'm not sure what tone was being shot for here, but none of the writing feels vaguely natural. Characters' lines are consistently terrible.
Sniper ambush, oh goddammit.
There's the rather infamous, but only if you promise to ride me as much as you ride your bike line going around, and that about sums up what to expect. There's a weird obsession with motorcycles to the point where after finishing one side quest, I watched a character crawl towards his wrecked motorcycle, crying that it's been destroyed. I'll admit I don't know enough about biker culture to know how accurate any of this is, but at the very least it serves as good schlock. Even worse, just when you think Days Gone is wrapping up, it pulls out a fourth act from nowhere. New plot lines are started despite nearly everything being wrapped up, the entire cast vanishes and is replaced with a bunch of new people, and there's an entirely new section to the map. The game was already 30 hours long and reached a natural conclusion with just enough sequel bait that I could have said I felt satisfied. Then it hits you with a weird, strange surprise and another 15 hours of story. It feels detached from the rest of the plot, like it was a planned expansion that was haphazardly sewn on to the main game. I said I can't believe this game is still going at least 3 times, and the weird fourth act managed to feel like a filler and rushed. Despite how badly written the script is, the voice acting is surprisingly on point. Sam Witwer deserves some real credit here for managing to turn in a convincing performance. Deacon's consistent tendency to cut off his own sentences or switch thoughts without stopping makes it feel much more like a genuine conversation rather than reading off of a script. As implied by much of the game's marketing material, Deacon is a biker, and as such, his motorcycle is very important to the general gameplay flow. You'll constantly be upgrading parts of it and having to care and maintain it. Several missions require you to travel long distances, and so keeping your bike repaired and fueled is a big deal. At first, it fits with the tone of the game, having to find scrap to make repairs and gas to keep moving. However, it isn't long before these features just became annoying. Keeping the bike fueled is a time-consuming affair, and soon it becomes easier to just fast travel to an encampment after every mission and buy a full refuel. Well, that's assuming I had the fuel to fast travel. To fast travel in Days Gone, you need to spend fuel and can only go as far as fuel will take you. By the end of the game, with the best fuel tank that I could get for my bike, I could usually get across the map and then have to stop everything to find fuel. However, without the fully upgraded gear, that often meant having to fast travel to a point between where I was and my destination so I could find or buy fuel. This especially became an issue because Days Gone had some insanely long load times. Fast travel usually meant anywhere from 15 to 45 seconds of loading, as did cutscenes. Worse was just starting the game. Hitting the button on my dashboard took 15 seconds to load, just to show who made the game, then another 90 seconds just to bring up the main menu. Upon hitting continue, I was brought into another 80-second load screen. Days Gone became a painful cycle of wasting time, so I could waste more time, so I could maybe eke out some fun stuff at the end of all this time wasting. Not that there was really much fun to be had. When you're not on your bike, Days Gone is mostly your typical open-world third-person shooter. There are some basic stealth elements, a bare-bones melee combat system, some light crafting and supply gathering, the works. At first the world is pretty deadly and I had to be really careful with each enemy. Ammo was low, enemy health was high, and if I didn't move carefully and plan, I would find Deacon getting himself killed rather easily. These opening moments were pretty great, serving as an interesting introduction to the world and making me invested in the game. Sadly, this luster is gone before long. Once Deacon starts to get better guns and melee weapons, much of the challenge and careful planning flies out the window. I could easily take out camps of violent cult members without breaking a sweat, walking into their base and gunning them down. This is something done a lot over the course of Days Gone, and the repetitive structure quickly became noticeable. The vast majority of missions are basically some form of going to location X, killing the enemies there, collecting an item, or saving someone's life. Often involves using Deacon's tracking skills, which is basically just a psychic detective vision under another name. Both main and side quests fall into this pattern, rarely breaking away from the monotony for something like a motorcycle chase. Many of the side events that can be found around the world aren't much better. There's some basic stuff like enemy camps that, when cleared, allow you to find maps that point out other activities and collectible. There's some basic stuff like enemy camps that, when cleared, allow you to find maps that point out other activities and collectibles nearby. Neuro checkpoints will allow you to solve some simple puzzles to get drugs that give you permanent stat boosts, while freaker infestations have you burning down nests to keep them from spreading. There's also a host of collectibles you can gather, such as historical markers, tourism guides, and military intelligence files. None of it is anything you haven't seen in another open world game before. The only real unique gameplay element Days Gone has left going for it is the hordes. Swarms of hundreds of enemies. They can often look imposing from a distance. For a long chunk of the game, taking on a horde is impossible. Running into one is almost guaranteed death, and the only option is to try and get away. Eventually, only within the final few hours, I felt comfortable enough in my equipment and stats to take one on. Once again, I discovered an experience that didn't live up to the hype. Almost every horde in the game falls to the same tactics. Walk backwards while shooting at them with a machine gun. Sometimes throw a Molotov or pipe bomb for fun. If the horde gets close, run away so you have some distance between you, rinse, and repeat. There's only one horde I actually enjoyed fighting, and that was a late game story one. Taking place in a sawmill, the environments gave you options like ducking through passages they couldn't follow, blowing up explosive barrels in their faces, and cutting down logs to crush them. This became the story of Days Gone, one of me being disappointed with every element that I was interested in. The zombie version of wolves and bears looked neat, but are just bullet sponges that add nothing of value to the game. There's a couple of boss fights, but they're normal enemies with health bars displayed, and most of them go down hilariously easy. An early game segment implies there will be moral choices in the story, but this happens once and is never brought up again. Perhaps the only thing that held up the way I was hoping was the weather. It seems weird to mention the weather, but Days Gone has a robust weather system that does a lot for the game. When it snows, you can actually see the snow accumulate, something I don't think I've seen in a game before. When it was foggy, it was legitimately spooky, and I had trouble spotting freaks out in the woods. Not since Drive Club have I seen weather effects this good, and it's one of the sole features that actually stand out. Glitches in Days Gone also don't do it any favors, and it seems like I was always running into new technical issues. One issue I always seem to be having involved items in my inventory just vanishing. I entered a firefight to find my shotgun ammo had gone missing, and later my melee weapon was just gone. Chunks of the world would fail to load, and I found that using survival vision in a tunnel had a pretty good chance of causing objects to pop in and out of existence. Items I wanted to pick up fell through the world more than a few times, and textures often seemed to take a few seconds to load in. There was also often noticeable frame rate issues, with Days Gone dropping to 15 or less frames per second while I was exploring the wild. I suspect the giant freaker hordes were the cause of this. The more I played Days Gone, the worse it got. Issues especially began to crop up around cutscenes. Many of the cutscenes just had no texture at all. They wouldn't even pop in a few moments late, they would just flat out never show up. Late game cutscenes had audio lose sync with the visuals, having characters only speak a line a solid 5 or so seconds after acting it out, or even just had all the audio missing. It's baffling, especially considering Sony's first-party games tend to have a ton of polish. Days Gone instead feels like it absolutely needed a few more months working out technical issues. I've simply never seen an open-world game perform as poorly as this one. By the end of Days Gone, I was just extremely disappointed. Did I think it was going to be the next God of War level hit from Sony? Not really, but I was expecting a competent and entertaining open-world game to help fill my days with something to do. Instead, I got a glitchy game that wasn't much fun to play when it was even working, and some truly awful writing. In the end, the only Days Gone are the ones that I wasted playing this game.